give that a try.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Happy Fools podcast. I'm your co host, Trevor, broadcasting from the poorly lit, dusty storage area underneath my dining room. Not joined, as always, by Alfredo. Alfredo's an international man of mystery. We never know if he's going to be here. He could show up. I don't
Yep.
even know what he does for a living. I don't know his
Yeah.
backstory, his origin story. Instead, I am joined by Nick for the third time. Welcome, my friend.
Hello. Hello. Good to be here.
You're the first person to come back three times, so you're either incredibly smart or something else.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm gracious though, uh,
you
for
and
for this.
Carl,
So,
you and Carl are competing for our most routine guest.
all
So
right. Well, might end up in a death match at some point. So we'll see.
on the 20th trip here, we might have to call it a draw. So
hmm
you're gearing up for a big trip. You just said a 7,000. Is that what you said? 7,000 kilometer road trip.
Something like that. Yeah.
Goodness gracious, man.
It's the first leg of it is something like 4,500 kilometers. So, okay. So wait, the first leg
You might be able to
is
finish one third of the Brothers of the Serpent UFO series in that amount of
I'm
time.
sure we will be listening to a lot of it. So the first leg of it is 3,900 kilometers, and then
Goodness
it's
gracious.
probably another thousand to Denver, and then another 2 or 3,000 to Paducah, back home. I don't know why I'm in kilometers. I'm kind of just like
It's
on
very
this
European of
weird
you.
European
Yeah.
thing mode right now, thinking about all these Europeans that my ancestors are were and just trying to
Well,
get in
and
that
you
headspace. I've been going in Celsius a lot, so
you have been, I mean, you've been traveling quite a bit to the Azores. I imagine they do everything in kilometers and Celsius, and they
yes.
don't use cheeseburgers per eagle like we do here to
I
measure
don't
speed.
understand why they don't. I mean, it's clearly the best unit of measurement,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I'm really upset. Maybe one thing that we can change by going over there is getting the old cheeseburgers per eagle
I
unit
agree.
of measurement uh
Cheeseburgers per
common in
eagle,
Portugal.
apple pies per, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, man, so last time you were here, we had a great chat about some. I was trying to figure out how to summarize what we talked about last time, and in my mind, you presented like pillars of what a location, what check boxes a location needs to satisfy to be considered a reasonable potential location for a civilization. We might call Atlantis, or we might
Yep.
call something else, but it was antediluvian, existed during the Ice Age. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's just how
Yeah.
I remember it. And the Azores Plateau, the archipelago or archipelago, as you might say, seemed to check all those boxes. And
Yeah.
so that's where we left off. And you had some awesome pictures and stuff to share tonight, I assume.
Yeah, I do. Yes, that is where we left off, and I'll start by kind of transition back from the whole geologic side of all of that into the archaeological stuff because it's connected. So,
Awesome.
um, yeah, the a few days after the podcast, I was given a document by somebody who I've been working Antonietta, who I've mentioned. She gave me a document that pointed to some geological research involving um, the collapse of magma chambers underneath the Mid-Atlantic Ridge.
Okay.
Did we talk about this?
I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Okay, I don't think we
Yeah.
did because I remember learning about it and I was like, holy shit, I wish I had known this for the previous pod because it explains some things. So,
Tell me more.
okay, so there's this evidence of so they thought for a long time that the Azores was and the Mid-Atlantic Ridge was um, kind of generated by this magma plume hotspot, but turns out there's evidence that suggests that that's not the case, that it's
Oh,
the
that's
magma
interesting.
was congealing and condensing and thick and hardening.
So
And
that's actually a big deal, right? Because normally when we see an archipelago like Hawaii or something, we assume it's from the plates moving with there being a volcanic hotspot,
right,
fixed under the crust, creating these islands, which would
right.
completely negate the idea of that being the location, right? So okay, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, so that was the theory for a long time, and then several researchers came along and they're like, actually, no, it doesn't look like this thing is sitting on top of a mantle plume. It's actually this crustal underplating thing, which is this uh, hardened bit of I don't use that lightly, a whole lot of material that's like hardened underneath. It's called plutonic inclusions. They like shoot up a little bit and then they harden, and it just kind of sits there and it kind of
Mm,
spreads out a little bit. But in the process of that happening, they realized that there weren't magma chambers. There's obviously this is a volcanic area and there are eruptions, but it's not like sitting on top of this huge caldera of magma. It used to be the case, however, that this was what was going on, and it appears that they've discovered these chambers that have collapsed. So if you
do
think
you want
about,
I don't want to make this too like kindergarten for folks, but um I would say we were a lower quality of interviewer over here. Do you want to explain do you want to explain what a caldera is? You're getting ready to visit one in
right,
a few days. What's a caldera?
yeah, a caldera, I mean, I guess I can explain it as well as I can. A caldera is essentially a chamber of magma that is kind of partly in the crust and partly in the mantle that is, a point of origin where a volcano would draw its magma reserves from.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
so,
I'm glad
so
I asked because that's not what I thought it was. Okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
there's
I thought it
there's
was like the remnant of a volcano exploding, like the basin after a volcano explodes.
yeah, that is also referred to as a caldera.
Okay,
It's
okay,
like
got it.
the after the
Got it.
post explosion of caldera.
That makes sense. That makes
Um,
sense.
so So, anyways, there's these magma chambers that once existed underneath the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and there's different shapes of them. There's like onions and intermediate, and then all the way up into like this like leek shaped thing, and then there's dikes. So there's all kinds of different shapes of these chambers. And basically, what they found is that there used to be onions, so big chambers that once collapsed.
Mm,
And if you think about what would have happened during the collapse of a massive chamber of magma underneath the ocean, uh, you can imagine that a significant quantity of mud and water would rush into that chamber as the vacuum of it is rushed to close.
makes
And
sense.
that mud and water is going to react with the magma very violently and
Interesting.
shoot huge quantities of the stuff of mud and water up into the air. Now, if you recall from the Bible, you have the great fountains of the deep erupting and shooting a
Mm,
pillar of mud and water into the atmosphere that would something on this scale would have been seen from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. So I think this is a
that's interesting.
mechanism that could explain what this column of water was.
Wow, very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And also importantly, so is that a stupid question? Never mind, move on. But I was going to say also importantly, it's nice to I guess this isn't necessarily a demonstration that this island chain didn't form from volcanic activity, though. It's
Oh,
just
it
an
definitely did.
okay,
The whole thing is, I mean, really everything's volcanic to some
right,
extent.
right.
You have basalts in some of the most ancient places in the world, but um, the Azores themselves are several million years old. Um, but they haven't been able to really, in my opinion, accurately chronologically date the different subsidences and uplifts
Right.
that have occurred and the eruptions that have happened. I mean, there's these stories of um, there's an island of Sabrina, which no longer exists, but at one point in modern history did exist. And then before that point, it didn't exist. So basically, what that means is this island was witnessed to be born out of the sea by Europeans, and
Mm,
then it subsided beneath the sea, and then it came back, and then it subsided again. So it's this whole area is just like very, it's still active for sure, but um the kinds of activity that would have created these things happened long, long, long ago.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was just a cool thing that I'd found. And maybe I can pull up that paper here in a minute. But um,
Oh, let me allow you to share your screen. I hear clicking. There
yeah,
you go.
sure, go ahead.
All right, you should be able to now.
Okay.
While you're doing that, I feel like I kind of transitioned you pretty quickly away from an interesting story you were talking about. Sorry about that. Which is this trip you're going on.
Oh yeah.
While you boot up your screen, you just want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So we're starting in Vancouver, and then the first stop is going to be to Mima Mounds in
Okay.
uh, Washington. So
Okay.
Mima Mounds is a really interesting place. There's like, I don't know how many, but it looks like hundreds of these little small mounds that are just all over this kind of like marsh looking area.
Oh wow.
And there's this guy named Harry who lives down there that has made a couple of videos just kind of showing what the mound area looks like, but also his property is right on the edge of this place. And
Mm,
he's found himself on this property a a rock with a star hole cut into it.
wow.
So we're gonna go see the star hole and talk with Harry, and he's gonna give us the tour of the place. And there's apparently a bunch of other weird, interesting things there.
What are
Um,
the implications of that? I'm new to this. I'm a neuroscientist, so
yeah.
I don't know a star hole from a square hole. So tell me.
So let me just pull up Relics of the Ancients. So this is a website. I'll go ahead and share here. This is pretty much the only place that I'm aware of that
Oh
has
wow.
actually documented these things. So star holes are
Cloverleaf holes.
basically
Wow.
look like this.
Exactly what it sounds like, but even cooler. Way more
Yeah,
three-dimensional than I thought.
right. So I don't know the depth
What
of
in
this
the
thing.
world? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, there's no natural explanation for that. I'm assuming, right?
Um,
I mean, I obviously, off the top of my head, could not imagine.
I would be very skeptical of anybody claim that this was naturally made. I would think that
How
they're
do
being
people
paid by somebody.
explain this, or is it just not really explained?
There is no explanation.
Okay,
To my knowledge, I've never seen anybody try to explain these away. Now,
that is
and
amazing.
it's funny because some of these links are so old that the videos don't even exist anymore. It's like they've been wiped. Um,
Oh yeah.
so these things are found all over the world. They're, I would call them, I'd probably say that these are like top five most rare archaeological artifacts that exist. Um, they're found. So star holes have been documented in Crimea, England, Scotland, Norway, Bimini Islands, Mexico, California, Utah, Washington, Massachusetts, and Arizona.
There you go.
Um,
Now,
so,
I know nothing about this, so humor me. But just growing up in Northern California and stuff, granite, and I'm guessing basalt as well is a very hard rock, correct?
oh yeah,
It's not a sandstone and limestone are softer, I assume.
yep.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
so I cannot even imagine today what kind of technology could make this spiral star through
Right. Okay, so you bring
granite.
up a good point there, spiral. Okay, so the one maybe I can zoom into this and because that link's not working. Okay, so there's one way that you could explain some of these by being created through a modern core drill, right?
That one
And
I could see because you could do one, two, three, four,
boom,
five.
boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 right? Okay.
Yeah.
But this one,
Yeah. That one is like, there's
nope.
no, it's as if you have a star that is just able to melt through the rock and you're
Well,
slowly turning it as you push it down. That's amazing.
yeah, so part of this tour is going to be accompanied by Jeff Appling. Now, Jeff, if you recall, was on like episode 63 or 67 with the Snake Bros. He's a jewel crafter
Right. Yes.
who um kind of quit his job as a like really amazing jewelry designer and maker and started investigating star holes and recreating jewelry with ultrasonic technology, trying to actually like replicate these things. And he's convinced me. I mean, this is I've been to his workshop in Sparks, Nevada.
Yeah.
I've learned how to do ultrasonic cutting, and this exact formation here is formed when a a a a tube, a metal tube, is hammered through a draw plate that is shaped like a star or anything that you want, and over time and over length, that tube will start to twist and contort. And when you go to put this thing on an
Mm.
ultrasonic drill, it's not even a drill, it's an ultrasonic, it's a vibrating ultrasonic machine. When you go to put that on there, it buzzes down and it creates a hole in the exact shape of that bit. So that's the only way to explain this, other than like crazy energy technology that we've never found any evidence for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even ultrasonic, even that is energy technology. It's just, I guess,
Yeah,
not,
totally.
it's not as crazy as, a laser beam from space or something, but it's still pretty. I can't imagine. I mean, when
Yeah,
do we have any idea when these were formed? I'm assuming not,
I
since you
don't think
know.
so.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
I have no idea. I have never found any actual like studies. I'm sure they exist, but I haven't found any studies on these things, like published studies. They're one of these, they're kind of like out of place artifacts,
yeah.
right?
Sure, sure. And there's no obvious utility that I can think of either, unless they were
Don't know.
like pylons for like a foundation or some type of structural thing. But
Yeah, my mind goes to some more mythical shit.
yeah, buddy.
Like some like keyholes or something. Like you stick a freaking special rod into this hole and
And then
turn
a
it and
crystal
it
skull
opens.
comes out
Yeah,
from
and then
behind a
like
trapdoor.
yeah, exactly. And like a freaking serpent made of diamonds just like comes and tells you the whole history of the entire planet and tells you like how to make more babies and stuff. Whatever it is, we'll see.
Oh my gosh, I like that a lot more than a structural thing. Oh man.
Yeah. So there's tons of these things. This is the longest one. This one's like I want to say this one's like 13 feet long, and they're all
Oh
inside
my
of like
gosh.
quarries and stuff. It's wild.
And those
There's a
obviously get harder to explain than the clover shaped ones with these angular star. I mean,
yep,
maybe they're not spiral, but it's still sort of difficult to explain. Wow.
right.
Okay. Well, I didn't mean to take us on this tangent, but this is very interesting. So this is in Washington.
Hmm.
Oh, so there's an
Well, there's
association with Atlantis here.
right, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean these are in Bimini, which is
Oh wow.
which is the western flank of Atlantis, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
So yeah,
cool.
this one's 18 feet long.
But
Crazy.
now Washington, that's closer to Lemuria, right?
Right, I guess it would be.
the only
Sorry,
reason I'm
Atlanteans.
the only reason I'm familiar with that name is I did my one and only mountain bike race of my
Oh,
entire life
cool.
was in Redding, California, and the name of the race was the Lemurian. And I
Oh,
finally asked somebody, I'm like,
neat.
what is the Lemurian? And they're like, it's like Atlantis, bro. It's
It's
like,
like the
oh,
Pacific Atlantis.
yeah.
Yeah, the Lemurians were the non-aggressive, more spiritual and like hippie pre-Diluvian civilization, apparently, according to some authors that
Wow.
lived in the Pacific. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So, anyways, and maybe if you can edit it in, I do have a video that I made of my visit with Jeff in his workshop showing exactly how these types of holes are formed with like up close high def video. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, okay, well, let's plan to edit it in right now then,
Okay.
because I need to run upstairs and grab something. So this,
Okay.
if I am going to edit, this will be a perfect time.
Perfect.
I'm gonna be back in like 1 minute.
Just like that. Oh, that's sick. I can see it. See, that's what I need, these close-ups. It's good spray, guys. There you go.
You got a light we can shine inside this thing? That would be bad.
Yes.
You know,
Let's look at the lights on.
nice light right on the like inside the rock.
Anywho, yeah, so that's Mima Mounds is going to be one thing. I don't know exactly what to expect there. The next
And then what's
place
next?
next is Crater Lake. We're just going to check
Oh,
that out a bit.
nice.
Yep, staying at Airbnb with a motherfucking hot tub up
Ooh,
in White Christ Drive.
okay.
Interesting name for a road there. And then the day after, we're going to Klamath Marsh, which has got apparently a bunch of petroglyphs and
Now,
like
now
stuff.
I used to live up in Klamath Falls.
Klamath.
Maybe you are actually pronouncing it correctly, how the original
I
people
don't,
did.
I don't know. I don't know,
But
man.
is it by Klamath Falls? Do you know?
I think it's a little bit northeast of Klamath
Okay,
Falls.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's like a
it
big nature preserve up there.
it might be pretty cold. Klamath Falls is frigid, but
Yeah,
it's March. You should be fine.
right.
And so what's there?
Um, Eerie mists, ancient petroglyphs, and rare wildlife.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll spend some time there. I really hope that it's warm enough to walk around the marsh barefoot. It's weird, but it's one of my favorite things to do. Uh,
Well, I don't know.
do you have any recommendations for or against that idea?
No, sure, go for it.
Okay, cool.
I just remember winters in Klamath Falls are pretty brutal.
Yeah,
It's if you do get a chance to drive through Klamath Falls, you gotta, just spend some time driving around the lake. It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. We
There was
have a
an
lot of
I
time, so
there was a big island for sale in the middle of the lake for 300,000. It could have been a Happy Fool's retreat,
no shit.
but I didn't have the money at the time.
Well, maybe we'll go halfsies on it.
Okay, yeah, let's split it. Let's split
All
it.
right, cool.
And then after that, you're going down
After
to.
that, we're going to your uncle's place,
That's
Surprise
right.
Valley Hot Springs. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Thanks for
hopefully it doesn't
orchestrating
suck.
that. Yeah, that would suck if it sucked.
Well, I mean, there's a hot tub and
Yeah.
there's lots of alleged extraterrestrial activity,
Right. Yeah.
but I haven't personally experienced anything there other than I was so confident I saw a UFO, but it ended up being a Mylar balloon. So,
What?
yeah.
That's just what they want you to think.
Yeah, probably. Although I did track it down. It was a Mylar balloon.
Okay. I
But
guess I have
anyway,
to believe you then. Fuck.
but there's all unfortunately I haven't been there in so long. I can't give you really any recommendations on things to do. But you guys are just kind of passing through, right? Because you're going to Shasta the next day.
Yeah, I think we're gonna spend, from the marsh to Hot Springs. That'll be a whole day, so we'll have a lot of time to explore. There's another interesting little lake pond marshy area that's south of the hot springs that I wanted to go check out. And apparently, I talked to the guy at the desk, and he was like, "Yeah, you can just walk wherever the hell you want, pretty much."
Yeah,
So,
and in the summer, that whole area is just a dry lake bed. There's like sand and dunes, but I think
uh-huh,
right now it will all be filled with water.
cool,
So it will
perfect.
should be pretty, pretty beautiful
Yeah. Okay.
drive.
Well, if we find a lake monster, I'll try to document it
Get it
and bring
get
it
it
on
on
for part
camera.
four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get it on camera, please.
Okay. Yeah, then we're going to go to Shasta. I don't know what we're going to do around Shasta, but more importantly, well, I don't know. More importantly, whatever, subjective. In Gazelle, there is an old limestone quarry on a woman's property that apparently has another star hole. So we're going to go try to find that one as well. Um, After that, we might nix this one because it's so wet that we wouldn't be able to do it. But Half Moon Bay, San Francisco, so that'll be a pretty long drive going down to Half Moon Bay, and I will pop this image over here. So this is off of the coast, off the cliff. I showed you this, but
Yeah.
um, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel can be seen up here. And allegedly, this is the old foundation that was built sometime in the 1800s,
Oh
that
wow.
was abandoned because it was too close to the cliff. But there are some indications and some speculations that this could be like ancient construction that predates colonialism because these types of foundations at their depths, it was I it's murky, but it's unclear if we were actually capable of that
Oh
when
wow.
this was
Okay.
supposedly built. So
Yeah.
um, I don't think we're going to be able to get to it, but the idea would be to go take samples of these columns and get them analyzed to determine if they're concrete or if they're some kind of other something else. I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. After that, San Juan Capistrano, where you referred me to keep an eye out for the MILFs, right?
I think the word I used was cougars.
Oh,
You
okay.
got to be careful out there. Yeah, there's lots of rich single
Yeah.
ladies in San Juan Capistrano. This
Okay.
is such a funny itinerary. Like these are not places you would expect to see on a like California tour.
Yeah, no,
I mean, they're
absolutely
amazing
not.
places. Half Moon Bay is amazing. San Juan Capistrano is amazing. It's just
Right.
it's funny.
Right. Well, yeah, Capistrano's got, maybe put a map up here. The San Juan Capistrano. So this is another place. The mission here is another spot that is
I did a wedding here. If I would have known there
okay.
was something interesting about it, when I say I did a wedding, I used to help my wife with like this photo booth business like
Right.
15 years ago.
Okay.
And if I had known in between all these drunk people running around, there was cool stuff to look at.
Well, the cool stuff to look at, I don't know if I can find a picture of it. Um, the story of the construction of this place is that
It
I
is
forget his
beautiful.
name. Yeah, but this guy that built it, um, that allegedly built it, didn't even know how to write. He was
Hmm.
a not an architect, not a builder. By all of the other accounts of this man's history, he was not capable of doing this. So, um,
Oh, that's interesting.
there's this idea that, and this is one of Jeff's things that he's been investigating for a long time, that this was also some kind of um, pre-colonial construction that was uh, claimed to be built by the settlers and the missionaries, but was
Hmm.
actually already there.
Oh, okay. That's
So
very
this gets
cool.
in, this kind of gets into the mud flood conspiracy of like Tartaria and um but there are some, so this is the big one, volcanic tuff. So you can see these arches here. This is all
Yeah.
carved out of volcanic tuff, which is a real soft material, but it's very delicate to work with. And the craftsmanship to actually work with this stuff is like really exquisite.
I
It's
don't
difficult.
I don't know San Juan Capistrano well. I used to live in Tustin. San Juan was, got to be about two more commas in your annual income to live there than what I was making.
Yeah.
Is there is there any other architecture like this in the area, or is this like truly like a unique?
I think it's truly unique. Yeah.
Because I mean, looking at that, that looks yeah, it looks
I
incredible.
mean, it looks like some Greek
Yeah, exactly.
stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And there was, I think most of this was destroyed during an earthquake at some point. So it used to be like way more beautiful.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, then after that we're going to Arizona,
Well,
Hualapai
don't
Mountain
forget you're
Park.
stopping by to see me and have a
Oh
beer, I
yeah,
hope.
that's right. Shit.
Come
I'm
on, man.
sorry.
You're already rode me out of your trip. Come on,
God,
dude.
I'm such a piece of shit
That's right.
sometimes.
Yep. That's the time to see us. We're about halfway between San Juan and Arizona. Where are you going to in Arizona?
Arizona, we're going to the Hualapai Mountain Park to
Okay.
search 11 miles of trails for another star hole. At
No
that point,
way.
we'll be joined by my sister and,
How fun.
um, right, yeah, Laura Clapp. She's Randall's creative director. She's going to be
Okay.
joining us. She's down in Arizona, so she'll drive up and hang out and then maybe a guy from the Snake Bros Discord. I'm still waiting to hear back from him, but yeah, it should be a fun party to,
Nice.
we need
Who
more
can I
eyes to go. Yeah.
is Jeff going on the trip with you? Is that your road trip companion or someone else?
No, well, yeah, Jeff is gonna meet us in Capistrano.
Okay.
But a friend of mine in Vancouver is who I'm gonna go pick up, and then we're driving all the way down and all the way back to Kentucky home. So,
Oh, good Lord.
um, yeah,
So you're
it'll,
driving back to Kentucky.
yeah, yeah.
So how did I don't want to get into like your logistics here, but if you're flying to Vancouver, what car are you?
So her
No,
sister is
okay.
taking us
I was gonna say no
to
rental car company's gonna green light this amount of
no,
mileage.
yeah, she's her sister's taking us to um Everett, Washington. We're gonna pick
Gotcha.
up a rental car and just drive it all the way back to Louisville.
Oh, really? They'll let you do that?
Yeah, yeah, you can pick up and drop off at a separate location.
Oh man, that's the way to do it. Holy cow, I didn't
Right.
think they'd let you do that. Okay, cool.
Yep, pretty neat.
Man, I might try to turn a family day at San Juan Capistrano into a meetup with you at some
I
point out here.
mean,
This
hey
looks
man, you
cool.
could, if you wanted to, you could come help look for this thing. I have an Airbnb booked, and you could just come hang and look for this thing out in Arizona. I mean, it's a 4 hour drive, so
Oh no,
uh
I'm talking about San Juan Capistrano. I'm not going to Arizona.
oh yeah, no, definitely
Although I do
come
like
hang.
Arizona too, but
Yeah.
that's not a
Yeah,
day trip. That's not a day
we
trip for you.
we don't have any limitations on the souls that can accompany us, so you're more than
Nice.
welcome.
Very
Yeah, it
cool.
should be pretty cool. Jeff knows a lot about it. He's the expert, so I can't speak too much to it, but um, it's definitely a beautiful place from the pictures that I've seen.
Ah,
But
yes,
yeah,
Orange County, California. It's where everyone tries to end up, and then we all
yeah,
settle. We all settle for the Inland Empire, like me and
right,
Alfredo, or
yeah,
but anyway, no, it's amazing. I used to live there. Too little, few bit too many people for my taste, but it is really nice.
yeah,
And that looks like man, what an exciting and fun trip.
yeah,
That's gonna be fantastic. It's kind of a shame because I feel like now obviously time and money is always a limitation, but you're passing so much cool stuff. Have you
yeah.
spent much
No,
time in California before?
not a whole lot. I've been to Desert Days a couple of times down
Okay.
in Riverside area, Moreno
Yep.
Beach.
Yep.
I spent some time in Venice Beach and
I love that you called it Marina Beach. That's such a local thing to say.
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. What is it not called?
Well, it's Marina Beach is like a neighborhood in Merino Valley.
Oh,
It's just there's no
Lake
beach.
Paris.
Yeah, there's no beach anywhere.
I beg to differ. It's a
Well,
pretty nice beach.
okay. All right. I'll let.
I like the beach, and
All right. All
it's
right. All right.
warm, and they got that really cool island out in the middle of it that you're not supposed to swim to, but we did anyways and got in trouble and almost got kicked out. So that's a that happened.
You come into my state and you break all the rules on day one. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
well,
fair.
it's California. It's not hard to break rules because you got
That's
so
true.
fucking many of them.
Everything's illegal here.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, well, that's awesome, man. So, okay, well, tangent, mission accomplished on my huge
Okay.
derailing of your presentation.
No,
Thank
no
you.
worries.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very cool. Can't wait to see you guys. And if I can figure out a way to get out to San Juan Capistrano,
Yeah,
I'll do that.
I hope you can.
I mean, you didn't technically invite me, but you approved my self invitation, so thank you.
I I okay, well, if it wasn't clear enough, I will technically invite you
Okay, good.
right now.
All right, awesome, man. All right, cool. Well, tell us about the Azores part two.
Okay, Azores Part 2. Yeah, this is let's just do slideshow mode here. I don't know
Man,
why
right off the
this
bat, what a cool photo.
oh man, I don't know why this fucking thing won't go away. Oh, there it goes. Cool. Okay, so I guess I can just preface this by saying that the Azores are a frontier in archaeology that is virtually completely unknown to 90% of the world or more, especially the alternative community that is all into archaeology and stuff. Nobody's talking about this at all. So this is kind of an inside scoop and hopefully uh what we can do with the tour and with the podcast and whatever and maybe a documentary that might be coming out of this is crack the seal and allow for people that come in to apply pressure to the community to the in place establishment here to start actually doing some more real archaeological work to better, well round our understanding of where we came from.
And
So
what's the reason for that? Why is it? Do you think it's just a fluke that it hasn't been explored much by archaeologists, or is there another reason?
well, you ask interesting questions, Trevor.
I mean, maybe nobody knows. I just it could just be a fluke. It's also, I guess, it's a bit out of the way, but so are most archaeological sites, I assume, but
Yeah,
or
there's
many.
that for sure. I guess I hadn't even considered the practical abilities for people to get to the Azores, even though it's really cheap, especially in the off season. But um,
Yeah, but so is a T-Rex dig in the middle of the Sahara. I don't know where
yeah,
T-Rexes
totally.
are, but
Not in the Sahara, but they're out there.
maybe like most things, there just needs to be a compelling narrative, which it sounds like now there is. So
Yes, and
yeah.
that's part of what this is ex bringing exposure to this area. And when I got into this thing with developing the tour with Randall and Darren and Graham and Brad and everybody, I did not expect to stumble into all of these different archaeological sites. And when I first learned about it, just through the different little things that I'd heard through the grapevine, I was like, holy shit. Yeah, absolutely. There's a cover up happening
Oh wow. Okay.
of some kind of magnitude of whether it's the Portuguese or whether it's the European Union, I don't know, or just the academic community, I'm not sure, but it now that I've learned quite a lot about this, it's not just a modern cover up. It's a cover up that stretches 500 years into the past, if that's what it is, which I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh.
I, yeah. Um, so
What?
we'll
So
get
tell
to
me.
that.
Tell me. Okay. Okay. We'll
We'll
get
get
to
to
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So let's just look at some of the evidence. And then another part. So this is megalithism and elemental language. Okay. So part of this is the phenomenological approach of like, what exactly is it? What does it look like? Um, what are its physical characteristics? Where are they? And I'm talking about these archaeological sites. And then there's I don't know what the term would be, the why or the how of like why did somebody do this? How did they do this?
Yeah.
And those two things should be taken separate in one frame of mind, but together in another. So certain researchers that have been studying these things have, for the past 30 years or more, have tried to take a phenomenological approach to this because when you try to when you try to go for the why with these sites in particular, because it's so poorly studied, you just end up in all kinds of dead ends, and it's kind of just like you're spinning your wheels. Um,
I get that. Yeah.
it's starting though now with this renewed interest in it to take a different approach of okay, I think we have enough people behind us that we can start to pressure certain parts of whether it's the government or the museums or the university to be like, hey, you need to start funding digs to actually excavate because that's the thing. Nothing has ever really been excavated in these pre-Portuguese sites. And that needs to happen because without it, you're never going to be able to find the proof that you want. But that seems to be what they want, is to not find the proof that they don't want to be public. So,
Can I ask you some questions about these photos, or do you have slides for each of these?
I don't have slides for each of
Okay.
these,
Okay.
but there,
Well,
yeah, we'll go. There's a slide for some of them.
okay.
So yeah, dolmens. We got cut marks. We have a
Well, what's a
mausoleum.
dolmen?
A dolmen is a stone structure that is uh
The,
Celtic or
oh, okay.
northeastern. So there's dolmens in the northeast US, in Ireland.
It's so like the I guess the what you would allege is that those stones were assembled that way so that someone could go
That's
inside
right.
of them. Oh wow,
Yep.
that's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, so there's
Um,
dolmens all over the world. It's almost like a pyramid type structure, but
do you know
they're
what kind of
everywhere.
stone this is?
This is tracheites. These are tracheites. So this is
Okay.
a high silica content volcanic rock formed by slow effusive flows that were like super viscous and they have high silica content. So
Man,
we'll get into a little bit that
you know your stuff. You're giving me way more information than my main curiosity was they got to be pretty freaking heavy.
they're big rocks.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
look huge. They look
Yeah.
dense. Okay.
Yeah, that's Peter. That's our friend Peter sitting in there. So those
Hey,
are,
Peter.
I don't know how many tons these are, but I mean, I would imagine these are, 20, 30, 40 plus tons.
Oh man, that's no, so another potentially stupid question. So is the word mausoleum just used because it sort of has the appearance of a mausoleum? I mean, those aren't actual. It wasn't a mausoleum, right? Or is there?
Well, that's up for debate.
Okay.
The the official stance of this structure here is that it was a columbarium, which is a pigeon roost. Um,
Oh wow.
Now, currently, it basically is a pigeon roost. There's bird shit all over these things. But uh
You know what that immediately makes me think?
hmm,
It was a way to gather fertilizer.
hmm,
Because what's isn't what's that? There's a name for that. Uh, like bat shit, bird shit. They found
guano.
it guano. Thank you. Why else would you have? Is it for food? Do you think? I guess we don't know. It's nothing but speculation. I won't
Well,
derail you, but
we'll get into it.
okay.
So, anywho, rock cut temples, paradolic stone, cairns, walls, circles, covered up tombs, literally like academic cover-ups, but also physically covered up. A huge lost city and a lot more. So petroglyphs. Um,
You're
let's get
you're reminding
to
me of
it.
Marty right now with your "we'll get to it," but I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
it. I
we'll get
understand.
to it. Chambers. Um, all right. So here, I think if I have okay, so just a little backtrack here. We got to
Okay.
do some more geology for a second. Um, the Terceira Rift. So Terceira is the island that most of the archaeology is focused on, and there is as you can see here, a hyper slow hotspot dominated oblique spreading axis that runs through from the northwest to the southeast. There's a rift there that is special. Okay, I'll just put it like that.
Okay.
Um, so I'll just read this. The geographic location of the Terceira Island within the Azorean Plateau, intersected by the Terceira Rift, a 550-kilometer long geological fault crossing the Azores Plateau, may play a significant role in determining the unique composition of its rocks. In certain areas, such as Serdacum, which is down here, the island features large quantities of quartzite with high percentage of silicates, setting it apart from the other islands of the Azorean archipelago. Furthermore, it is plausible that the geological fault created by the Tercera Rift generates specific electromagnetic conditions, amplifying the natural magnetic properties of these rocks and influencing humans, animals, and plants in the area. In ancient times, such places with unique characteristics were often identified as dragon lines or ley lines. The awareness of these conditions might have inspired the cultural architecture found on the island, possibly linked to the enduring myth of the dragon.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Um, let's just keep going here. So, uh, back to some more geology stuff. Okay, so this is a bathymetric map here. The image here is basically showing that from from San Miguel, which is right here, going up through this deep hole here and
Hmm.
running laterally, diagonally through Tercera, and then crossing again this giant deep hole into uh, this is Santa Maria, and then continuing to another deep hole. Basically, this line is the Tercera Rift. So you can see
Okay.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
vertical change along this whole axis.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is from this paper here. And on the first podcast, we talked about the thickened crust and that being a potential factor in the uplift and the subsidence from the isostatic compensation. So I'll just read this off. Therefore, our results indicate thickened crust and airy compensation, and consequently do not support a hypothesis that the Azores Plateau is caused by a thermal swell and/or dynamic uplift by a mantle plume. So that's what we started off talking about with this talk, right? That
Hmm.
it's not a mantle plume and it's something else. So these are my words now. In other words, possibly the results indicate the existence of the plateau in its current state may be due to melted glacial ice. Airy compensation is the adjustment of the Earth's crust to maintain gravitational equilibrium following the removal of material from the crust. The last time enough ice existed on the planet to cause significant vertical movement through this mechanism would have been during the late glacial maximum, which we know has since all but disappeared. Through this disappearance of the North American ice caps, regions affected by the compensation may have experienced subsidence. So
Okay.
the Azores. Um, so this is important because of the following. Present in and around the Azores Plateau exists a known gravitational phenomenon thought to be caused by a buildup of mass in a depth zone near the boundary between the lithosphere and asthenosphere. Magma is congealing beneath the crust in this region, cooling and thickening in place, while also contributing to very slow seafloor spreading. The concentration of mass results in a heightened strength of gravity for the entire region broadly, but some areas measure extreme variation. So, in places where the crust is thicker, i.e., on the uplifted sections, here, right, you're going to have more gravity because there's more mass there, so the gravitational effect is higher. In the deep regions, you're going to have less gravity. So this whole area has got these gravitational fluctuations that are all over the area, and they're changing too.
Hmm.
In concordance with that, you also have the Azores archipelago being a hotspot for magnetic anomalies due to active volcanism, seafloor spreading, and past geomagnetic shifts. So the composition of the rocks in this area is such that researchers have been able to identify anomalies in the magnetic history of the area. So basically, when there is some kind of volcanic flow that is liquid magma, lava at that point, and it hardens, the iron in that magma is oriented towards where the pole is, the north and south poles are at the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
So there's all these different layers of magma here. There's like hundreds of different flows that they've found. I mean, there's thousands and thousands, but they've cataloged enough of them to show that there's different orientations of the geomagnetic field that are like imprinted in the history of the geology here. So basically, what that's showing is that you have a very dynamic magnetic and gravitational environment in this area that is significant for a lot of reasons. But to bring it back to the archaeology of it, let's just go with it's significant for ancient people as a mechanism to have some kind of connection to the land and to the rocks through a geomagnetic, and gravitational lens. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a little bit woo-wooey, but there's going to be some science to back it up here.
Bring on the woo.
All
I'm fine
right,
with it.
so chemical and physical characteristics of silica and quartz. So, as we talked about a little bit, the the amount of high silica rock in Terceira is there's way more of it in Terceira than the rest of the islands. And virtually all of these archaeological sites are created from this trachytic rock. That's spelled Trachytic. Trachyites are high silica content volcanic rock. So that means quartz, basically. So high
Okay.
silica quartz. Um, so quartz is a diamagnetic material. That is, when it is submitted to a magnetic field, a weak magnetization appears, which has the opposite direction of the applicate field. This induced magnetization disappears when the field is retired. This means that the magnetic susceptibility is weak, negative, and reversible. So, you know how you can like rub a magnet on a nail or something, and that
Sure.
for a little bit
Screwdriver.
that nail
Yeah,
becomes magnetic. Okay, that's what's happening here
got it.
with quartz, with silica. Uh, so pure quartz is not magnetic in itself, but trace impurities like iron, titanium, or manganese can give it weak magnetic properties. Now, this is an interesting connection. Um, so Serra de Coom, this is a huge area that we might be able to see some more pictures of here in a minute, but there's these cisterns all over the place so these are farmlands. These are like cows wander around these fields, and they're all lined in these rock walls and stuff that the Portuguese have built. But there's these cisterns that are underground cisterns that nobody claims to have built. So
Okay.
these things may have been here prior to the Portuguese showing up. Uh, Samples taken from the cistern wall here were tested to have significant levels of titanium. So you have
Titanium.
titanium inside of silica, which makes it more magnetic. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you ever heard of this guy, Marcel Vogel?
No.
All right. So he was I believe he worked for IBM. He has like 27 patents.
Yes. Yeah. Is he
So
this
he
good?
Go ahead. Well,
Uh,
he had all these patents, and then he started to get into like crystal research and became like persona non grata woo woo, like this guy's a pseudoscientist, but had some pretty interesting discoveries. Um, what were you gonna say?
Um, no, I was gonna say, is he like the structured water guy, or am I thinking
That's
of
right.
somebody else? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I've always thought that was weird, the like eye roll associated with crystals. I mean, obviously there's some interesting physical phenomenon going on with crystals. I mean, quartz, piezoelectric effect,
yeah,
powers watches,
yeah.
crystals can store information, they can diffract light in
No, it's
interesting
crazy.
ways. Yeah,
The cognitive dissonance is
I'm
fucking bizarre.
I'm talking into a crystal right now. I mean, probably not a real crystal,
Yeah.
but years ago it would have been a crystal. And ultrasound uses crystals. It's yeah, it's
So even ultrasonics, we were talking about ultrasonic drills use a crystal, a quartz crystal in the head of it to transduce electricity into mechanical vibration.
hey, listen, just because a bunch of basic girls named Becky manifest things with their amethyst does not mean crystals are.
Yeah, they might be fucking right, man. I hope they prove us all wrong.
Speaking of which, quick tangent. So when you drive from my area to Arizona, you got to
Hmm.
stop in a town called Quartzsite. It's
Okay.
it's like it's I don't know why this is, but if you go to like I mean, I don't know what it's like where you live, but out here we have like Joshua Tree,
Yeah, we'll
Palm
be in
Desert.
Joshua Tree.
You can go to a store and you can pay like $30 for a stupid little amethyst or whatever, right?
Yep.
Well, Quartzsite, I'm assuming, is where all of these stores throughout the country source these things because it's just
Hmm.
fields of
Wow.
massive crystals for like $1.
Holy shit.
And just every type of, like all these different things you're discussing here, basalt, granite, you could probably get examples of them, which might be kind of cool to bring back. But
Yeah,
anyway,
totally. Thank you.
yeah.
That's a good tip there.
I thought of it when you were talking about the map. You mentioned maybe something called Quartzsite. I don't know if it was a town or what.
Gazelle.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what made me think of it. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
That no, that's perfect. So yeah, Marcel Vogel, he was a IBM scientist that did a bunch of cool stuff for them, but then he was like, wait, crystals are fucking sweet, so I'm gonna start researching that. Uh, literally verbatim, that's what he said. So Marcel's research on the interaction between quartz crystals and water, particularly how quartz can allegedly influence the structure of water molecules. Quartz and water share a tetrahedral molecular structure, which might allow quartz to organize water at a molecular level.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so this is a light bulb moment for me. Okay, so here's the structure of quartz. Structure of a quartz tetrahedron is a fundamental unit in the formation of quartz crystals. Each tetrahedron in quartz consists of a silicon atom surrounded by four oxygen atoms, forming a three-sided pyramid shape. These tetrahedra connect to form larger crystal structures, with each tetrahedron sharing one of its oxygen atoms with another tetrahedron to create groups of five tetrahedra. So here's a tetrahedron. It's just a three-sided pyramid. Well, four-sided pyramid. Uh,
Yep. Super common molecular
yep,
structure, methane, anything that ends in a four.
right.
CH4, SO4. Yep.
Yep, yep. Okay, so what else is tetrahedral? Boom, fucking water, dude. In liquid water, each water molecule forms
This is
hydrogen
interesting
bonds.
because water is not tetrahedral, but it organizes itself with
Correct.
hydrogen bonds into a tetrahedron. That's interesting.
Yes, yes.
Very cool.
So each water molecule forms hydrogen bonds with an average of four adjacent molecules, creating a network that resembles a distorted tetrahedron.
Hmm.
Okay, so you have two different tetrahedrons here.
Okay.
What do you
So
get when you
water is
come?
like a liquid crystal, basically.
Yes, exactly. I mean, LCD screens are liquid quartz screens.
How interesting.
Okay,
Wow.
so what do you get when you combine two tetrahedrons?
You get that scary looking
Boom.
thing you got there.
Okay, so so the next slide will show, but I'll just read this. This is from that paper mentioned before from Teresa Azevedo, who we'll see a little bit in a minute. So after describing some of the numerous extraordinary properties of silica, it seems obvious and understandable that our ancestors chose the enriched silica rocks to build their sacred places. They knew all its potentialities and could use it to fertilize the soils, to cure illnesses, to connect it with the
Hmm.
stars and gods, to orient the soul in its path in the direction of eternity, dot, dot, dot. Quartz is no doubt the most fascinating mineral on the planet, as water is the most fabulous liquid.
How interesting.
Okay.
Man, not to I long for a time like this when we thought about where to build sacred sites so
Mm.
that we could fertilize the soil and cure illness and
Yeah,
connect with the
man.
gods. Oh, I love it. All
Right?
right.
This is the elemental language that we're talking about. It's being in tune with these things. And just to put it out there, I by no means impersonally do I feel like I am in tune with these elements. I'm just reporting on it. I hope to one day be, but I'm not. I'm still a basic bitch when it comes to all this. Okay, so here was the aha moment for me. When I saw tetrahedron, and then combine the two, what is that? That's the fucking Merkaba. That's the Star of David.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, so the Merkaba,
Let me skirp you a little bit though.
go for it.
Do are they able to combine like that? Or do you think it's more of a symbolic?
Symbolic.
Okay, okay,
Symbolic. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I get it. I'm on board. Oh, is that a little Ezekiel wheel I see?
Uh-huh.
Oh man, talk Ezekiel to me. Let's do
Here
this.
we go. Well, we could do the whole, we could read the entire passage with cool images if you wanted to, but I don't know if we have time.
It's up to you.
Okay, so Merkaba. So the word Merkaba has its roots in ancient Hebrew where it means thing to ride in. So most people think that
No,
it
it
means
doesn't.
chariot.
No, it doesn't.
What?
Does it? Is that what it
Yeah,
means?
it means chariot. That's what you'll see when you look it up.
Hell yeah.
But
All right.
if you trace it even further, it's just simply thing to ride in, right?
Man.
So people called Ezekiel called this thing that he saw in the sky a chariot, but actually no, it wasn't a chariot. That's just what they called things to ride in.
Yeah, what
They
else are you
called
gonna
it the
call it?
Merkabah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's derived from the Hebrew word Merkabah, which refers to a vehicle or chariot. The term is most famously associated with Ezekiel's vision in the Bible, where it describes a divine chariot or throne. Additionally, the word Merkaba is believed to be comprised of three components: Mer, meaning light; Ka, meaning spirit; and Ba, meaning body, symbolizing the union of spirit and body surrounded by light. So, interesting thing here too is that in Egyptian, Mer is pyramid, Ka is life force, and Ba is to become. So there's something there with to be becoming the pyramid of life force, whatever the hell that means. But it's a interesting linguistic connection there.
And you got
Um,
the masculine, feminine idea
right?
too.
Yep.
That's
You
cool.
have the
Hold on a
pyramid
second
and then the
though.
chalice.
Is this where the symbol comes from?
Yeah.
From Ezekiel's vision?
Yep.
Shut
So
up.
okay,
I did not know that.
so I tried to look in and I tried to outsource some help from the Snake Bros community here and try to figure out how this triangle pyramid interlocked Star of David thing came to be and how that's associated with Merkaba. And it is just a symbolic thing. This is not the shape that Ezekiel saw. What Ezekiel saw was a
Wheels within
two
wheels.
wheels. Yes, a wheel within a wheel, flaming wheel within a wheel, a four-headed seraphim creature, and then literally
Yikes.
God himself coming down on a flying, glowing throne, right? So, um,
Again, though, I mean just words, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Chariot,
So
throne, yeah.
I think the shape of this developed by tracing it back to the kind of ancient Templar symbolism that was going on in this time, with Mer being the pyramid, and then so the pyramid is going to be the masculine, and then the life force becoming is literally like being born, right? If you to become is to be born, to be to become a life force, that means you have to be passed through a birth canal. So that's the
Yep.
feminine. So you have Mer masculine, Kaaba feminine, and Kaaba is also cube in um
Hmm.
in Arabic. So you've got these like vaguely masculine, feminine things, and you combine those two things and the union of masculine and feminine, and you get the Star of David.
Very cool.
So yeah, that was just an interesting thing that I was like, okay, this has got to mean something, right? If we're gonna go to the full on esoteric woo woo making connections where they don't exist, then I'm gonna go ahead and make this one.
I brought some red yarn and push pins. Let's do it.
Okay, that's my favorite game to play. Okay, how are we doing on time?
Good man.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna preface this story here with, so this is gonna be some more elemental language here. Now, this story was told to me by a woman who, if you come on the tour, which is sold out with a few golden tickets, I might add, um, you'll meet her. She's gonna be she's gonna be one of the guides. Um, her name is Maria, and she's a special person, and she told me this story. This occurred in September of 2022. Okay. I'm gonna have to pull up that on another thing. Okay. So this took place, so the cistern that I mentioned before,
Yeah, yeah.
this is
O-
where this happened.
Okay. Hey, I felt like we kind of glossed by that cistern. So, like, what is the titanium in the walls? The significant. Remind me what the significance of that was, other than just being completely bananas. Doesn't make sense.
Um, Contributing to the increased magnetism of the rock.
So potentially the people who built these, this was a feature. This was something they did.
Potentially, I don't know if it was
Wow.
like an actual like metallurgical composition,
Right.
but it could have been they had some way to, I mean, you know about divining and
Yeah. I mean,
that kind of stuff, like
generally. Yeah.
geomancy, right? So
Sure.
there have been people in history, and I know a couple of them who've actually successfully uh, divined and water witched for water, have done this stuff and
Yeah.
beat engineers at it, literally.
Yeah, this is one of
But
these like weird esoteric things where everyone just assumes it's made up, but then actually like maybe it's not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
For
if
people
you,
who don't know, I mean, my understanding, divining is you have the two sticks
yep,
and you walk around and they cross over a water source for whatever
right,
reason. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it all has to do with magnetics. And that's water and magnetism is like I mean everything is affected by magnetism, but for some reason this works and I honestly haven't looked into it too much, so I don't know how. I don't think anybody really knows how, but it does work. Um, so yeah, at some point in the past, there may have been diviners who could detect levels of precious metals found within certain tracheites, right? So
Okay.
they would be like, okay, we need to use this rock because this one's got more of an energetic output that I can feel its vibration. It's got titanium in it, and that's what we need. Obviously, they wouldn't have called it titanium, but they're like, yeah, this is the one. And then they bring it
Sure.
to the place and they do the thing. Okay, so yeah, the cistern, right? I don't know if the cistern that I showed is where this actually happened, but it happened in one of these places up in Siriticum. Okay, so I'm just gonna read. She sent me an email describing the story, so I'm just gonna read it
Oh,
out
cool.
loud.
Okay,
Okay.
let's go. Yeah.
Okay. About the night. Once, a self-proclaimed witch of Wales and her husband, who had come to study sacred healing waters, were brought to me by Dona Antonieta. I was asked to take them to the stones, as Dona Antonieta refused to go at night, a requirement, but their request. That was 2 years ago this September. So that would be September of 2022. I had walked to Soretta, around 20 kilometers, to Our Lady of Miracles, a local Marian place. That's the cult of Mary. Later, around 11 at night, I picked them up at the designated meeting point and we set out. He wore a British Indiana Jones style hat and carried a torch that doubled as a walking stick. She was very Gaelic, blonde, mature, in a flowing dress. We went on. The island
Sounds like
seemed,
she's from San Juan Capistrano.
yeah, I had that thought.
Okay.
Yeah. The island seemed to be all alone in Soretta. The roads in the island felt as though they belonged to us alone. He shared his reasons for seeking the sacred waters, while she, sitting in the back of the car, murmured something I pretended not to hear. Atlantis, Atlantis, the gods of Atlantis, and you, the guardian. When we arrived in perfect harmony, the full moon greeted us, and she sang to it. I'll never forget that song. My child, take me to the waters. I will teach you how to speak to your ancestors. We climbed to the top of the hill. It rained and there was a strong wind. I led her to my chosen basin. He lit the torch. The rain stopped, the wind ceased completely. She leaned over the basin carved into the rock. Tom, give me fire. And the water began to swirl clockwise. She murmured phrases in an ancient sounding Gaelic tongue. She placed her hand in the water, and instantly the water began to turn counterclockwise. The spell is done, my child, she said. All the gods will help you bring Atlantis back to life. Antonietta had told her I was a diviner, having found a cistern with a subterranean water using divining rods. Just a beginner's stroke of luck for me. And the witch had asked me to take her there, not without Tom first putting on a musical display, playing stone against stone, and I came to learn that stones make music. I took her to the cistern. We had to remove the mother rock that sealed it, and I did. Then she, sitting on the edge, dipped her feet in the water, making it whirl like a vortex. Tom, give me the fire. And a spark fell into the water, igniting long flames, so much that I moved back in defense, but she remained still, untouched by it. I was in awe of the beauty of the phenomenon. It was one of the most extraordinary and most beautiful nights of my life, but not the only one. That's it.
Damn, man.
Boom.
You need to narrate a book, number one. Number two, I was like so lost in the melody of it that I honestly, I'm not sure I have any fucking idea what happened. So tell me, so she hears a voice or sees someone and they basically do this spell on the cistern and it spins one way, spin the other way. Give me the
Yeah.
cliff notes. Give me the summary.
Um, I mean, I don't really know, man. Like,
Okay,
if
good.
I'm being honest,
Okay, good.
so talking to her, it seems, I mean, this was a very important experience to her. Like this, like rocked her to her core,
Oh my
and
gosh, yeah, absolutely.
it had to have.
I mean, I think a lot of times we hear stories and we go, "Oh, that's probably not true." But then, you're alone on a dark night and you think to yourself, like, if that actually happened to me right now,
Right.
it would 100% shake me to
Yeah.
my foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've gone through it a couple of times, like envisioning myself experiencing this thing, and like it would absolutely change your entire perspective on existence. The ability of somebody to do something like this. And Arthur C. Clarke says that magic is just hyper advanced technology, right? So if this happened, that's what it is. I mean, in my mind, it's alchemy, right? This is just a classic example of modern alchemy that.
Yeah. Hyper advanced technology or technology that is just so fundamentally different
Right, exactly. Which
that
is what the
you can't
Atlanteans
recognize it.
supposedly
Yeah.
possessed.
Right.
Is this, and probably the Templars too. I mean, this whole stuff with the monoatomic elements, and the Ark of the Covenant and all. I mean, I
Yeah.
think this is talking about the same kind of language. Okay.
Very cool.
Um, so yeah, that was
So she'll be on the trip, this individual,
yeah.
Marie. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yep. So people can ask her about that, and she's got all kind and the last line of this thing was it was one of the most extraordinary and most beautiful nights of my life, but not the only one. So, there's more to this whole story that I don't even know. So
Yeah.
we can
Very
find
cool.
out together. Yeah. Okay,
Man, yeah, that's
moving
interesting.
on from that, huh? Okay, so
Sorry to this, but does she, what did, man, maybe this is something people can find out from her, but how did she interpret this experience? Like
well,
who is this person or people, this voice?
so
Obviously she
well,
doesn't
the
know,
the
but
the woman, the Gaelic woman from Wales, the witch, right? That's there with them, and her husband Tom, or I don't know if it's husband, but yeah, yeah, husband, I think. They are. I have no idea who these people are,
okay.
but it seems like they're probably some people that. I mean, this is like some real life Indiana Jones shit, but
Yeah.
like even more mystical than Indiana Jones
Right.
because he never had a witch as one of his little companions or
Hey,
whatever.
let's not forget Indiana was a mainstream archaeologist at the end of
Right.
the day. He was a
Yeah.
Flint Dibble with a cool hat.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Flint's hat is definitely not as cool, but
That's right.
just to make that clear. Um, yeah, I mean, I think Maria, especially from the line, Atlantis, Atlantis, the gods of Atlantis, and you, the guardian. The witch is saying this, and she's
Okay.
talking to Maria.
Okay.
So, and Maria is Azorian. So she is kind of like sanctifying or knighting Maria as a guardian of this place. So I know from talking to Maria that she feels she's serious about this whole place and the exploration of it to the point where, she's like, what are you actually here for? She's pressing me on it. Like, why
Sure.
are you here? Like,
Yeah.
are you just trying to exploit, are you, and I'm like, I'm trying to convey to her like what the mission of this whole thing is to like, you know, figure out where we're going
Yeah.
by understanding where we came from, but
Right.
also reawakening this ancient knowledge that I believe definitely existed and still exists. We just have to rediscover it. So, she takes it seriously, and I want to do everything I can to help her with that. And so
And
it's a big
so
effort in that.
this the Gaelic woman, is this someone that she's in contact with, like can follow up with? Oh, okay, we don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I tried to not
Yeah,
press too
you
much
don't want
on
to
this
press people.
one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's something that it'll have to come up again. So
Yeah.
Maria, I know you're going to be listening to this, so be prepared to answer these questions.
Very, very cool story. And just honestly, kudos to Maria because I don't think I'm a very courageous person. I think I would fall apart if I started seeing some trippy stuff. You know what I mean? I've heard some of these
Yeah,
stories from people and I'm like, I don't know if I could keep it together. So kudos to Maria.
yeah, for sure. Okay, shall we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I think I ended. So now we're gonna get to some of the specific sites, but also their perception in academia, in the historical community, um, and how these sites have like maneuvered through their mythos throughout history. So this is from Antonietta, who everybody will also meet on the tour. She's an anthropologist that I've been working with. She's done most of the work cataloging the different sites across Tercera, and she's amazing. She's a 88-year-old woman that can climb a mountain better than I can. She's
Wow.
brilliant and a pure badass. So these are her words. The Portuguese in general, but Azorians in particular, learned to see their islands as having been discovered by the Portuguese, with a history of human occupation starting in the 1430s with the Flemish and Portuguese populations. This version became rigidly imposed in spite of contradictory information occasionally showing up along the centuries until the present time, when further freedom of speech and of vision took place. However, the former position is so well established that the reaction towards a new prospect is of disbelief from the part of the population. The same happens from the authorities denying permission for archaeological studies. So this is what we're trying to change. And I don't even care. I'm putting it out there. We're coming after you. We're gonna explore these things, and
Well,
it's got to happen.
so treat me like a third grader here. So what what is the issue that basically the Azorians, sorry, the Portuguese see themselves as having discovered this place, or but there was already a population living there, correct?
There was, there is evidence
Okay.
that there was a population living there.
Okay. At
And
the
the
time of
claim,
discovery or sometime in the
yes,
distant past. Okay. Okay.
yes, at the time of discovery. Um,
Is there any sort of DNA investigation going on in that regard? That'd be interesting. Just
there is and this is probably way more ancient, but it's interesting you bring it up. There is so native Azorians have this, and I don't have a slide in here of it, but they have an echo of a Mongolian gene
oh, cool.
as well as a Japanese gene, um, that there's no explanation for. And it may be the case that at some point along the history of colonization, um, a Portuguese person may have, or village or group or whatever, may have actually assimilated with some native people that still lived on the islands.
Huh.
And
Wow.
that's where that echo comes from.
Interesting.
Um, so
So,
we'll,
so
we'll
native Azorians, like what do they consider their ancestry to be? Like they're
Portuguese. That's it.
really interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, Azorian. That's they. So there's this thing between. So the Azores are an autonomous country basically. They can operate economically, fiscally, all these
Sure.
politically outside of the jurisdiction of the Portuguese government, with you know, certain things that they are required to comply with. But there's kind of a there's kind of a rivalry, not only between the Azores in total, but also the Azores in total to mainland Portugal, but also from Terceira to São Miguel. The capital has flipped a couple of times between São Miguel and Terceira over the past several hundred years of different occupations. The Spanish occupied it, and the capital moved. So there's this competition that has been a thing culturally for 600 years nearly between different islands, but also between mainland and uh and the and the Azores. So native Azorians will always say I'm Azorian. They won't say I'm Portuguese, pretty much.
But but they don't identify with the population that was there before discovery.
No, because that didn't exist.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Cool.
Okay, let's move on. We'll see some of it.
And
Okay.
if people are listening, didn't exist was in air quotes.
Yeah, air quotes. Sorry, I forgot. Um, Okay, so Soretta, this place is one of the most special places to me. It just has this magnetism to my soul, literally. I got lost here for like 5 hours just exploring the vast complex of stacked stone walls, circles, and cairns. It's truly immense how big this place is. This slide's got a bunch of different sites on it, and I don't want to spend too much time going into any individual one, but Soretta has probably been investigated the least. And I could go at lengths talking about all kinds of little things right now, but I won't. I'll save that for maybe another time or for people that come on the tour. Soretta is an important place, and we'll touch on it a little bit later.
Okay.
So Mont Brazil is a solar aligned carved cave sanctuaries, benches, troughs, and a carved monument slab on the very top of it. There's tunnels.
Oh wow,
So
that's pretty amazing. Look at that entrance.
yeah, so Mont Brazil is so this volcanic feature here was formed about 30,000 years ago, so it's relatively young. It's made of pumice and tough pyroclastic material, so it's really soft.
Okay.
And at some point, people carved into the side of this thing
But
these.
how is that explained? People believe that the Portuguese made this?
They don't really address
Okay.
it.
Okay. Got it.
Um,
Got it.
there wasn't. I mentioned the official stance. Air
Right.
quotes again, official stance, and I don't know if they actually referred to Mont Brazil in this
Because
official stance.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously I'm not an expert here, but I don't think the Portuguese are known for carving solar aligned caves, are
You
they?
said it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Got it.
no, they're
Got
not.
it. Got it.
So Mont Brazil in particular has um a bunch of spots that are interesting. I mean, there's a huge rock on the very peak of it that has all these little channels and chairs and stuff carved into it. And then there's the caves themselves, that
Hmm.
one of which is solar aligned. The third one, which is the most impressive one, is a holy shit, this is just hitting me now. It's a tetrahedron. It's an icosahedron, I think. It's a
Oh, wow.
tetrahedron on top of another tetrahedron. So that's the shape of this thing, is a three-sided pyramid with an inverted three-sided pyramid beneath it.
Oh
Um,
man, isn't that a fun idea?
yeah. Wow. Cool. This thing rings like a bell when you walk into it and speak. It's like a resonant chamber.
Oh,
It's
that's cool. That's such a common thing that people
Yep.
describe with all these ancient carved caves and stuff. Wow.
Yep. And
What are the
if
what are the walls like? They look fairly smooth.
so the walls of all of these little caves, at least in the so these three so there's three caves. There's this one, and then there's another smaller one. These are all off on the south, on the eastern or the western side here on this
Hmm.
big platform. These caves are all covered in like moss and like this
Gotcha.
really thick green stuff, and it makes the craziest sound of water just percolating through the whole thing constantly. It sounds like frogs inside of a Tupperware container
That's
that are
awesome.
just like plucking. I don't know how to
It,
describe the sound.
and we don't know the age other than it has to be newer than the formation of this little rock
Yeah, for sure.
peninsula here.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's been a lot of this is probably the most studied site in all of the Azores because it's the most like in your face. It's got the solar alignment here, but what what we think this is a sanctuary to Tanit or to Astarte, which was a Phoenician goddess of the sea. She was a mother goddess. Um, Across Europe, you see similar types of chambers that are sanctuaries to this goddess. And she would be the lady, you know, she would be a representation of the lady Mary, Sophia, Fatima, this feminine goddess presence that is like the mother, right?
That's
Um,
interesting.
so in the back of this chamber here, I wish this little picture was not cut off here, but there are these channels that run along the lengths of the cave and then curl down into the bottom of it, and the water is collected on these channels and it goes down into these little troughs here that you can see here,
Hmm.
and they fill up. And in another cave, there's one that there's the same thing that goes down into a V shape that there's like a cup in the bottom of it that's like the chalice, right? So you have all of this water and feminine symbolism in this whole thing. So it seems pretty likely that this is either uh, Phoenician or Carthaginian or some, you know, pagan, maybe sea people. It- you know, there's never been any excavation of this again, so
That's
we don't
cool.
really know. We can only go off of a bibliographical kind of analysis of it.
But
Next,
but no affiliation necessarily with like a pre-Diluvian civilization or anything.
no,
It's
no,
modern.
this is
Okay.
all, well, I mean, I think again everything is connected. I think the people that were here knew why this place was important
Right.
because they would have had the memory of the pre-Diluvian civilization
Right.
that we have now lost. But the Phoenicians certainly, and the Sea People, you know, were direct descendants of the Atlanteans, according to, you know, most of the people that you would take seriously in researching the Atlantean legacy, I guess you could
Right.
say.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Cool.
yeah. So another one we got Grota de Meadow, which is the dolmen structures here. Now there's Grota de Meadow is it's got a bunch of dolmens. It's not just the one. So you
That's
look
a
at
pretty
this and you're like,
large. That's a pretty large looking structure on the bottom there.
oh yeah. Yeah, so
Wow.
this is a path of sacred subterranean river ending in Angra, beginning at the complex of the dolmens, altars, basins covered in petroglyphs. So this is actually a Jesuit temple or a watchtower that was built, I believe, in the 1600s. And the local lore of this temple is that this thing was built over top of an ancient structure to hide it.
Hmm.
Uh, the top of this thing is caved in. It's completely collapsed. And the the people who own this land told Antonietta and another a couple people that I've asked, this thing used to have an altar inside of it that apparently was an ancient altar. So
Wow.
this thing was built around it to either protect it or to hide it or to keep people away from it. We don't know. And again, no excavation has ever been done. So we will never know until that happens. Um, this whole so this structure here is on the top of a big hill that's covered in trees, but all throughout the woods there's dolmens, there's rocks with cut marks, there's rocks with basins. You can see right here there's a little basin there. This thing is solar aligned. It's facing directly uh west, so when the sun sets you can see the reflection of the sun in this puddle of water. It's like
Hmm.
perfect. um Grota is a special place. Okay, so here's Ceredicum. Here's the Dragon Rock, which is one of the famous ones. So Ceredicum is an area that's a collapsed caldera, but it's huge. It's all farmlands right now, and it's rolling hills and flat hills and not flat hills, that doesn't make any sense, but it's farms. But on each side of it, north and south, there's a big ridge, and on the north side of it, there's a 4.5 mile long ridge with over a dozen recognized trachytic paradolic rock formations containing cut marks. So that's rock formations that look like an animal or a face or something.
Hmm.
Um, Basins, menhirs. A menhir is a like a standing stone. Um, a lot of the menhirs have um, petroglyphs carved into them. So menhirs, this is where the cisterns are. There's petroglyphs all over the place, and as far as the number of menhirs, Antonietta has counted over 5,000 of these things that are embedded into the rock walls that divide the different farmlands. So these are rocks that have likely a different mineral composition, so are more high silica content than the other rocks. They're bigger, they're taller, and they have petroglyphs in them. So there's all these menhirs that are just all over the place, interspersed through all these walls.
Wow.
Yeah. Some more. Um,
Oh, look at that.
yeah, Santa Barbara. So Santa Barbara is the big caldera on the west side of the island. Um, it's a pyramidal hill near the caldera, and it contains at least 5 chambers. There's a rock with petroglyphs on it, and the field to the south of it has cairns laid out in an Ursa Minor geoglyph.
Wow, that's
So
pretty amazing.
this was just discovered last year.
So this
Um,
is so someone's added like ropes or something on to illustrate
no,
or
that's just a digital overlay.
digital overlay. Okay.
Yep.
That is, I mean, obviously to the naked eye, that certainly looks like Ursa Minor, but is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's accurate, and it apparently is. It's not only just a geoglyph of Ursa Minor, but it actually like is a mirror of the constellation in the sky.
Oh
So
wow.
when they were trying to figure out like because there's these two other ones right here. They're like, what the hell are those? Those are just random
Hmm.
rock piles, and then they're like, no, let's look at this with a mirror in the sky, and it matches up. So um,
To
yeah,
other
these
stars.
to Ursa Minor and to the Little Dipper in the sky itself.
But so these 2 points here, though, what are?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the other
Okay.
two are.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know.
Gotcha. 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 Wow, that's cool. Man, yeah, that's not something I'm aware of the Portuguese doing,
Right. Yeah.
carving
That's
T-shaped tunnels
see,
into rock and
that's always the joke. Anytime we're walking around these places and seeing these things, we're like, so Portuguese did this, huh? And
it almost seems a little ridiculous. Like I would be really curious to hear what a, quote unquote mainstream anthropologist or archaeologist says about this, cuz just as a naive layman looking at
yeah.
this just doesn't strike me as Portuguese. But again, I don't know. I mean, I guess the question is, are there T-shaped tunnels and geoglyphs in Portugal or other Portuguese colonies? And my guess is probably not. But
No, but there are Neolithic monuments and Neolithic and above and earlier. There's all kinds of constructions in Portugal that are reminiscent of some of these.
oh,
But
well, that's interesting, I
there's
guess.
also things that are totally not Portuguese. Like so much of the archaeological sites here are like explicitly Celtic
Hmm.
or North, and there's this weird link between the megaliths of the northeastern US to Celtic megaliths like Stonehenge, and there's dolmens all over the place in Ireland and Northern Europe.
Yeah, that's what. Again, limited knowledge here, but that's what this looks like to me.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, I
hearing,
mean, a cairn is literally it's like a Viking term. It's a Northern European term.
got it.
Yeah. So with the Azores being in between the northeastern US and Ireland,
Yeah, that
you
makes
have a
more sense.
link.
Yeah.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
know how much they explored. I just again, I don't know about this stuff to really know the time frames, when the Vikings were exploring the Atlantic versus the
They
Portuguese,
would have
but
been so the Vikings would have been exploring, and there is evidence of Viking occupation in the Azores going back like 700, 800 AD.
okay.
There have been some studies on the genealogy of mice that have been found in the Azores that are linked to Viking mice, I guess. I can't recall the
And
exact details of it.
Vikings were carving tunnels and stuff like this.
They weren't. So yeah, maybe they didn't really do a whole lot of stonework. They might have modified things, but they definitely stacked stone to
Do we
build
have an idea?
cairns.
Sorry, I feel like I'm interrogating you. I'm sorry. I'm just so interested. Do we have any idea how they would go about carving into this rock? I mean, it
Are
doesn't
you
seem like
talking this specifically? This
that or
picture
any
here?
that the caves, it just doesn't seem trivial. It just doesn't seem like something where you grab your hand axe and you start like finally carving out these
Yeah.
intricate
Well,
things. But what do
so
I know?
there's a few different types of rock here. So the mausoleum and the hypogeum, those are both carved out of volcanic tuff. Tuff is a pyroclastic material that is really soft and you can chip away at it with your fingernails if you wanted to. So
Got it. Okay.
with that, yeah, you could do that with a wooden chisel if you wanted to. It would take a
Oh wow.
while, but
Okay.
you could do it. The other rocks, so the tracheites, the basins, the uh the cut marks, let's see, the cart ruts,
Hmm.
the pyramid. I mean, that's
Pyramids.
another one. Yeah,
Wow.
that's a whole other one. The cut marks, you're not going to be able to do that with anything that's softer than the rock you're trying to carve into.
Got it.
Um, because I mean, that's like very, very tough rock. Um, I will say, so I climbed into this chamber here,
Hmm.
and on the left side of the chamber, the wall is built up with individual stacked stone. On the right side, there are chisel marks all over it,
Oh, okay.
like iron chisel. So, or maybe not iron, it could be bronze. We know
Sure.
that, the Bronze Age was prolific and they did a lot of work. I think a lot of this stuff is probably Bronze Age. Um, but there's chisel marks all over the right side of this thing. And I got a video that shows that. I'm not going to pull it up, but just to touch on that a little bit, the I don't think there's been any and that's the thing, it's so hard to talk about this because there just hasn't been any rigorous scientific evaluation
Yeah, I see your
of
point. I understand your mission now
yeah,
quite well.
right,
It's like, wow, this is like obviously this demands uh some investigation.
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So interesting.
right, yeah. So the mausoleum, so this is it. It's in the side of a big cliff, and yeah, it's funny. They say that it was probably, they're like, yeah, it was. I talked to a woman at the museum who's employed by the government. She's like, yeah, we think it's a place where they were like aging wine, or like a pigeon roost, and it's like, okay, well, if you're gonna make a wine aging place, or a pigeon roost, why would you carve it into the side of a fucking volcanic rock? Why wouldn't you just build
Yeah.
it out of stone or out of wood, like down on the farmland? It just doesn't make any sense. So,
Yeah,
not to be an
I
asshole to
retract my
them, it just
I
doesn't make
retract my
sense.
fertilizer comment earlier. I mean,
Right.
you construct something like this that clearly is designed to be permanent
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lasting for a special reason.
right.
Yeah.
And I can share this in the top of this thing. So I should have pulled up so I have a 3D scan of the mausoleum.
Oh, how'd you do
Um,
that?
you know what? I'll just pull it up.
Okay,
I
cool.
did it with we did it with
Oh man, look at all this stuff.
yeah. So there's an app. If you have an iPad or a newer iPhone, they have LiDAR on it actually, and you can scan stuff.
Oh, look at this. Oh, I don't think it dawned on me how um enclosed it was.
Yep,
That's cool.
right. So this thing is
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
big.
that obviously took some doing, you know. Now this is tough, you're saying?
Yep, this
This is it.
is this is carved out of tough. Let's see if I got this one. Where's that
So could
blue?
potentially be like urns.
Right, that's what we think. And there was an independent study that was not government sponsored, but I know they know about it, where they took samples of the bottoms of some of these things and found silver in it.
Oh,
And it was a
wow.
common thing to place a silver coin underneath the urn
In what
as a
in what culture, or just is that widespread?
Phoenician.
Oh,
Phoenician.
wow. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
they think also I think the Romans also did this. So uh when you look for this place on Google Maps, it's called Columbarium Romano. Okay. Columbarium is uh it means, it basically is a pigeon roost, but I don't like to call it that because I think that's bullshit. But they do
Yeah.
call it Roman. So they say that the Portuguese built this thing in the Roman style columbarium.
Hmm.
That's its official,
Yeah.
classification.
Who knows? But the
Yeah.
silver, that's interesting. Wow.
Yep. Yep. The cart ruts is another one. So cart ruts are found in at least four different locations across Terceira, Saubras, Port Martins, Lajes, and Santa Barbara. Um, these things are really freaky. So this trail up here that goes through Sabras, um, the cart ruts kind of follow the trail a little bit, but the terrain is like it goes up and down and up and down. And there's these spots where the cart ruts will follow the terrain and then they'll stop. And then the terrain will actually keep going down and then it'll go back up and then the ruts will start again. So it's like the
Oh,
ruts don't actually traverse the entire length of the curve of the terrain.
maybe there was a bridge, a
Maybe,
path.
maybe,
Who
man.
knows? Yeah, wow.
Again, so much of this, I'm just like, yeah, we have no idea because no one's ever studied it. So here you go again with that whole
I've never really
effort.
gotten super into the like anthropology, archaeology stuff and all these podcasts like Brothers of the Serpent and stuff.
Hmm.
I've always been more attracted to kind of the some of the like physics, consciousness, even some of the UFO stuff. But man, I totally get it. It's so interesting. I mean, you're like a detective,
Yeah,
except you need to
it's forensic.
stratify everything by time.
Yep,
It's like yes, this could be Portuguese and this could be Phoenician and this could be Celtic.
yep,
And they're all in the same place, but it's spread out over thousands of years or whatever.
exactly. And that's a good segue to, I guess, one thing that to encapsulate all this, I think is a important thing to consider, in the past 12,000 years, this whole island chain has seen a lot of eruptions, a lot of earthquakes, a lot of disastrous events. Not only that, but it's really hard to get to from Europe, especially. It's really hard to get to from Europe because in order to get here from Europe by boat, without, by sailing, not with a motorized boat, you have to go way north and dive into the Gulf Stream. Otherwise, you get blown south and you miss the islands completely. So that's why I think the Vikings were able to get there easily.
That makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
so it's hard to get to, and it requires the knowledge that there's even something there, which
Right.
only would have been passed down by people that came from this place, or had somehow traveled there and were able to discover it independently. But what you get with all of that is a tumultuous history of what appears to be several different cultures over 12,000 years that have inhabited this place and farmed here, created monuments here, and then for some reason or another were either wiped out or they left. I think I think it's possible that they could have been wiped out by, people could have been here for 500 years and then some crazy volcanic eruption wiped them all out and they're just gone. Or it killed a bunch of them and they're like, fuck this, we're not living here anymore. And they went back to Europe or
Hmm.
wherever. So you have all these weird remnants that are
Or
left
just
that
sort
are,
of assimilated, interbred, kind of
yeah,
disappeared in that sense, right? Okay.
yeah. I mean, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but it seems likely that there were people here when the Portuguese showed up, and that has been heavily suppressed.
Hmm.
So let's keep going. So the Pico Pyramid Complex is a huge area. It's over a
100
hundred
pyramids?
yes.
Wow.
Yes, over 100 stepped pyramid structures just outside of Madalena, which is really the only big city on Pico at all, and one extremely long, elongated mound with a solar aligned chamber. So this chamber is in there. It's some kind of burial chamber, but it's pointed straight east, this thing. So, um, and if you can see a little bit, this classic shape of the chevron shape here.
Hmm.
This is the archstone, the archway, right?
Well,
This is the entrance to the Great Pyramid is the double chevron of the Apis bull of Hathor's Apis bull. So
yeah, I mean,
these are symbols.
I've never bought the explanation that pyramids are just the natural thing to build. Like when archaeologists are pushed on like why do we see similar pyramids all over the world, you know? And it's like,
Hmm.
well, you build a platform and then you think, well, I
Yeah,
guess I'll build a slightly smaller platform. Like
right.
it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. It's one of the potential things you might build, but to
Yeah.
see it all over the world is just like, it seems a
Yeah, no,
little. Yeah.
that is, and we'll get into that a little bit. A similar kind of um, dissonance with that explanation. It's like, okay, sure, but then why the fuck are there these shafts and chambers all throughout the
Right.
thing?
Exactly. And
Like,
similar, like you just
you
said,
can't,
archways. Yeah.
yeah, you can't like have like, ah, they just wouldn't have stacked stones in a good way. You can't have that, explain that, and then ignore all of the other stuff. So,
I just it's counterintuitive. I mean, you go to the beach for the first time with your kids, you say build something in the sand. You don't see 1,000 pyramids. You don't see 1,000 set
yeah.
pyramids all over the I mean, obviously that's a
That would be
stupid.
badass if you did.
Obviously that's a stupid comparison because there's obviously different. When you're doing megalithic construction, there's different ramifications.
Right.
But the point is, it's not like the default thing to build, which is kind of how archaeologists portray it. Like, well, of course, what else would you build besides a pyramid with
Yeah.
keystone archways and uh, shafts?
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, I'm with you. Hey, my family's asking me when I'm gonna make dinner. How many more slides we got?
Let's see.
I'll stop interrupting you.
Um, we
Oh,
got, let's see, what are we at? One, two, three, four, five, six more.
all right, I'm buckling in. I'm
So,
gonna
well,
stop
all right,
interrupting.
we'll burn through these a little bit, okay?
They look cool already.
Okay. So these are just some of the petroglyphs. So this is just, we'll just run through these. This is like some kind of bird thing. Um,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
This is at Grota de Meadow. This is also found at Grota de Meadow. This one is actually on display at the library in Angra. Antonietta found this one and got it put on display. So there is a shift happening locally. Um, this is also a Grota de Meadow. This is a classic tenet or Astarte symbol, the star.
Yeah. Wow.
Um,
Look at that. It's a
Now
little too
this,
Blair Witchy for my liking, but
right? Yeah, it does look like Blair Witch. I spooked me a little bit too seeing that. I was like, holy shit, this is freaky. And this is like in this area that's got all these giant cedar trees and it's just really dark. Um, this is petroglyphs found in Quatro de Riberas. And there's actually a study on this that translated these characters to, and this is subjective, but this was a professional evaluation of these characters. Um, we return and we will see is what this is translated to. It's like
nah,
a,
get the fuck out of here.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
So this is one of the menhirs that is one of the 5,000 standing stones that's interspersed within these walls in Saraducum. This thing is, yeah, you can't, a picture never does any of this stuff justice, really.
Yeah.
Even seeing it in 12 o'clock noon light can't do it justice. You got to really see these things at sunrise or sunset. But there's all kinds of, there's like a bird here. There's a winged bird with its claw. So there's petroglyphs everywhere, just as the point. And there's, I mean, I have hundreds of pictures of different petroglyphs.
Oh, cool.
So there was some studies that looked to determine what these things actually are. So Miss Teresa Azevedo is an archaeologist, anthropologist who has done a lot of work in the Azores. Um, so basically, this paper is really good. It goes into a lot of different things that are coincidental with the petroglyphs. They're trying to figure out like how these things were actually made, if there's a natural phenomenon that can produce this. And basically, with this article, what they landed on was that they think these were made by biotribology. So um, petroglyphs or root grooves, the thin soil layer outside of flatlands densely forested upon discovery, similar markings on rocks around Tasmania, Sydney, and elsewhere. may explain the genesis of the petroglyphs. So
Hmm. Interesting.
when Tercera was first colonized, there was forests everywhere. So the idea is that these tracheites were grabbed by the different rocks and or by the different roots of the trees that were there, and over time, with wind swaying these things, the roots kind of dug in grooves and did this. So they go on to say, after extensive bibliographic research and many failed attempts to reach a plausible explanation for those grooves, Bednarik's hypothesis in 2001, repeated in his comments, blah blah blah, seems to be the most fitting to explain the Terceira Island grooves. This is because they were located in areas once densely forested and swept by strong winds and occurring on blocks that lie at the present topographic surface. So basically, the takeaways for me with this was that it's possible that whoever did live here, and this is what they say too in this article, whoever may have lived here prior to the Portuguese, may have found these grooves and they've mysticized them and copied them.
Hmm.
Um, Number two, what we need to do, and like as I was reading this article, I was like, okay, the next time I go here, I'm gonna go uproot a bunch of trees and see if I can find proof that there are roots that are grabbing onto rocks to prove this one way or the other. And then I
Right.
keep reading, and they're like, yeah, we need to find modern examples in the Azores of biotribology in action to validate it. So number three, again, this paper fails to view in this in the context of all the other rock art formations. So if this is true with the petroglyphs being caused by roots, what does it really change with everything else? How are the basins formed? How are the cut marks formed? How are all of the other rock formations formed? If you can explain petroglyphs away with a natural phenomenon, then what about everything else? You have to see it as a holistic thing, and that's one of the problems that we see in science and in archaeology, especially, is the siloing of different disciplines, the inability for multidisciplinary perspectives to
Right.
look at a problem to come at it from different angles. That's what Randall is so good at because he
Yeah.
understands, so many different disciplines that can explain things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Moving on. So
Yeah, I mean, it could be roots could certainly
sure,
do
it's
some
been proven. I
markings.
mean, you
Yeah.
can see
Yeah.
the picture right here. Yeah, it
Yep.
totally happens, but not in the quantities and symbolic
And so,
coincidences
and
that seem to be
some of these are on walls, correct? Or are they all on
right.
stones? Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
some of them are like elevated up, and you could say like, oh, there was an earthquake and it knocked it loose and rolled down a
Sure.
hill, but like, I mean, you're really grasping at straws. That it's way simpler to
Right.
say that there were just people here and they made fucking petroglyphs. Okay, get over it.
Yeah, it's like at some point, if you have your heart set on a particular interpretation, like you can come up with any explanation to justify it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so another woman who's critical, in my opinion, to this whole research is Isabella Garnesh. She's an author. She has a website. She's a brilliant writer, and she's her ability to put together different studies and images of antiquity to the Azores and to Portuguese history is just fascinating. So, this is a transcript from one of her Facebook posts actually, that blew my fucking mind when I read it because I hadn't seen this yet. So, I'll just read it aloud as fast as I can. The warm climate of the early Middle Ages, which calmed the west winds, likely facilitated the first Viking voyages to the Azores during a period when the North Atlantic winds would have pushed boats from Iceland, a scenario proposed by researcher Pedro Rapaceiro, who analyzed sediments collected from various Azorean lakes. Anthropological, which is the study of charcoal, paleontological, paleontological, god damn it, paleontological, which is the study of pollen, and mycological, which is mushroom, fungus, data focusing on the clearing of agricultural fields through fire, charcoal, the subsequent cultivation of non-native species, pollen, as well as livestock farming, fungi, and organic compounds associated with sheep and cattle feces, such as 5 beta stigmatostone, stigmastanol, unequivocally indicate the presence of foreign pastoral agriculturalists from the 8th century onward.
Oh, inward. Sorry. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Um, all of the islands, except Fayal, Graciosa, São Jorge, and Santa Maria, yielded dates earlier than their official discovery. Corvo Island's Lake Caldearo revealed evidence of cattle farming around the year 850, and sediment from Paixino Lagoon on Pico Island indicates agro-pastoral activity around the year 700. So, just recap, you have evidence of domesticated animal farming 700 years before colonization. Okay.
Wow.
However, and this is where it gets a little dark. However, the most intriguing case in this historical narrative may be the one with the most modern dating. Terceira Island, Lagoa do Ginjal, suggesting human presence around 1420, implying that at least this island might have been inhabited when the Portuguese arrived. So they found evidence of cattle farming that predated the supposed human Portuguese
Hmm.
occupation. So
Interesting.
how the hell do you explain that without people being there before you got there? Riddle
Right.
me that. Um,
So we
so
got a little maybe conquest going on.
yeah, there
A
you
little
go.
bit.
You're picking. I didn't want to say it,
A
but
little
you're
bit.
picking it up. Yep.
Gotcha.
So this is from Emanuele Anati. He's an Italian archaeologist that wrote a huge paper on the Azores. It's a really great read. That's like a full encompassing of everything. It was in 2017. There's another thing. Analysis of stratigraphic pollen accompanied by carbon-14 dating has revealed a change in vegetation around the year 1287 CE in the island of San Miguel. Such a change appears to be the result of human action. And this is from the paper that he cites, Roll et al. Our pollen record suggests that San Miguel was already settled by humans circa 1287, approximately a century and a half prior to the historically documented occupation of the archipelago. So, who could this have been? This close to the official discovery?
Yeah.
My mind goes to Templars because we have ideas that they were traversing back and forth from the Americas or from Europe to the Americas to hide their gold and to do all these things and to you know
Now we're talking. How
stake
cool is
land
that?
claims and all this
Yeah.
stuff in that period of time. So yeah, maybe they had a settlement, and we'll get to a little bit more of that in part three.
Okay. Deal.
Okay, next, Natives in the Azores. So this is from a book written by Anthony Pagden in 1999, a short account of the destruction of the Indias. So this is while Columbus was in Flores, one of the islands of the Azores. Pagden says Columbus learned that strange items had been washed upon the shore of local beaches, including carved pieces of wood unlike any in Europe. There were huge, hollowed out, carved pine tree trunks, which he would later discover were made by Indians and called canoes. Most significant, two bodies of dead men washed up on shore. Their features differed from those of the known races. According to Bartolomeu de las Casas, the two dead bodies that looked like those of Indians were found on the Portuguese Flores Island in the Azores. He said he found that fact in Columbus's notes, and it was one reason why Columbus presumed that India was on the other side of the ocean.
Hmm.
Nearly at the same period, the brother-in-law of Columbus, Peter Correa, governor of Porto Santo, who, by the way, was a um, Templar who Columbus, I don't know if he married his daughter, but uh, got he courted this man's daughter and got information out of her, allegedly. Um, Found on the strand of that island pieces of bamboo of extraordinary size brought thither by the western currents. The dead bodies and the bamboos attracted the attention of the Genoese navigator, who conjectured that both came from a continent situated towards the west. So this is an actual photograph taken by Christopher Columbus in 1493. not an AI generated image of
Of
dead
course.
people on a beach. So just wanted to throw that out there for
Wow.
official posterity.
So that's interesting, man. This island is it's had a pretty crazy history. I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense where based on where it's situated, right? That you would have, of course, the Vikings finding it first because my people were the best at exploration,
Yeah.
but then potentially uh try like people from America, Native Americans, I guess, coming to this is what you're implying here, right? That on canoes
Yeah.
from I don't know what Newfoundland to Greenland to Azores. I'm not sure how that would work,
Something. Yeah.
but wow, that's fascinating.
So most likely, if it is true that the Gulf Stream is today and for the past several hundred years what it was in the distant past, they would have most likely had to come from like Florida or the Caribbean or the South to actually insert into the Gulf Stream
Okay.
at a southern enough point to get there. It's possible that they could have come from the Northeast for sure,
And
but
so yeah, this is something that would be incredibly unusual to make up. And I don't know why people are always searching to disprove things like this. It sounds like we've got some pretty reasonable evidence that Columbus came across this.
yeah,
And wow,
yeah.
that's
Why
fascinating.
why would he make this up? Like what?
It'd be a weird agenda to have, it doesn't really satisfy anything that would make sense to me
Yeah,
as an agenda. Wow, that's incredible.
right.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so this is the story of the Island Devil. So let me just back up here so you can't read it. Um,
Okay.
there was a merchant that so this is one of the like cult classic historical stories of the Azorians that point to some kind of um inhabitants living there as far up into the 17th century. Uh, and this is referred to only once in history by the main chronologist. But here I'll read it in his words. So, a story published in volume 3 of the Chronicles of the Province of San João Evangelista das Ilhas dos Açores, written by Friar Agostino de Monte Alverne and made public in 1695, tells of one of the contacts between Portuguese settlers and quote unquote evil spirits, which were said to inhabit the Azores Islands. Here is it verbatim. There was a young man in the city of Angra named Antonio, who, with a man whose trade was making sieves and tin crockery. During the speech of the year, this young man was going around the island selling sieves and tin crockery. It happened that going one day, this young man on the north side, between the place of Altares and Folhades, the devil appeared to him in a human figure, provoking him to fight with him, to which the young to which the said young man refused, and the devil by force took him away. A little beast on which he was riding and embracing him as if to fight, he took him by force to the edge of the rock in the cliff very high above the sea, so that he could take his life in this way, invoking the holy name of Jesus to help and be of assistance. Suddenly, as in despair, he gave the demon a sign of who he was, leaving the said young man on a cliff that the rock threw outwards, so he did not perish. With the groans he gave, after being there for many hours, some people passed by. Reaching the edge of the rock, they saw him, and with ropes, which they threw from above, tied with them, they raised him up to the path, and thus mistreated, he came to the city and disillusioned the master, who would no longer be with him, nor use the job he had. On this occasion, the fleet from the Indies passed through the city and went to Castile. So the language in this is a little weird because it's like super old-timey Portuguese, but basically, this guy is traveling around Tercera selling stuff. He gets attacked by this demon who like provokes him and like tries to get into a fight with this dude, pushes him off. He kidnaps him, takes him on his horse or whatever he was riding, his little beast, uh, takes him to a cliff, throws him off the cliff, but like right in the moment of being thrown off the cliff, he invokes the name of Jesus Christ. And the demon's like, oh shit, okay, I won't kill you. I'm sorry. And he flees. And then this guy is rescued by people from the town. Antonio um, goes back to Portugal, tells his story, is given money and resources to actually go to build a church. And
Hmm.
I believe I'm saying this right, but so he builds a church in Porto, which is on the southeastern side of Terceira. It's the Church of Saint Anthony, and there's a weird thing that I didn't even expect to talk about, but in in the mid 2000s, Antonietta Costa was observing I hope I'm telling the story right, and she'll accost me if I'm not, but she was observing um, a renovation of this church that this guy made, and in the front of it, they were redoing the courtyard, and they ripped up the tile, and they were redoing the tile, and carved into the bedrock underneath this tile were two stone hewn tombs that were definitely not Portuguese. And the supervisor of this site ordered them to be covered up without any investigation. And this happened nearly 20 years ago. I think it was like late 2000s. So
Empty tombs or unknown?
I don't know.
Wow,
They didn't get a chance to actually go in there.
that's pretty
Um,
cool.
I think they were probably covered. They were so okay. So when Antonietta first told me about this, I didn't have an idea in my mind of what these tombs looked like, but and I wish I could find the Facebook post because just recently, in the past couple of months in Portugal, mainland Portugal, there was there was a construction job in one of the towns there, and uh there was all this drama with it. I don't know the story. I need to find the Facebook post, but they were digging, and they had all this soil exposed, and then there was this big rainstorm, and it washed away all the soil. And what it uncovered was over 650 stone hewn tombs carved
Hmm.
into the bedrock. And this is like I can't even find anything online about this. It's like in some cryptic Facebook post, but there's drone footage of it. There's an official like report on it. I don't even know what the hell is going on. Why can't I can't find this thing? But when I talked to Antonietta about this Facebook story, this of these tombs that were found, she was like, "Yes, these are the same types of tombs that I saw being covered up in front of this church."
Hmm. Wow.
So yeah, and apparently that's not the only place that these tombs are in the Azores. There's seven or eight convents all throughout Angra de Heroismo. And in at least one of them, there's another series of tombs that are the same type of tombs that are carved into the bedrock. These are not Portuguese tombs. So you have Azorean tombs carved into the rock, and then you have Portuguese tombs carved into the rock. Like there's an obvious connection there that people ignore and or
Yeah,
haven't
that's
made the connection yet.
right.
So
That's interesting. That well, man. So the first part of this is a fascinating story. I mean, it kind of follows this recurrent theme in the UFO phenomenon, which is this invoking of the name of Jesus Christ seems to have some sort of effect on some of these
yeah,
paranormal experiences. I mean, it's kind of like a maybe like a cliche thing to say, but I have come across posts and stuff that of folks who actually kind of investigate these things, and that is kind of a common, I think, theme.
yeah,
But so yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, and wow, the tomb idea, it's wild
yeah.
stuff.
That was mind blowing for me for sure. Yeah. Okay, well, I got one more slide and we can just kind of gloss over it. You'll probably want to ask some follow-up questions, but I hesitate to even do this one because it's kind of pointed and attacking, but I'm just gonna say these are some suspicious behaviors over the past several hundred years that indicate to us that there is some kind of conspiracy to.
Let us have it.
Okay, here we go. Number one, forbidden travel routes and areas in the 15th to 18th century. So, uh, there was a strict fine imposed on people who traveled to the interior of the island between these time periods. They said that it was because it was dark and there was a lot of woods and it was scary and that people would get lost. So they didn't want people to go up there. And they fined people extraordinary amounts of money to do it if they did it and if they were caught. So the idea here is that they're trying to prevent people from encountering any native Azorians that were still around, especially after hearing some of these stories of the guy getting pushed off the cliff. And
Yeah.
there's that's not the only one, by the way. But so
So
the
native Azorians, island devils, or Templar gold, all of which need to be kept
yeah.
kept hidden. Got it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. The so in the mausoleum, inscribed into the circumference of the ceiling, there is traces of what has been translated as Phoenician writing. Phoenician, the word purple, is what's been translated so far. But it appears that the writing that goes around the circle has been destroyed, and purple is all that's left.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
there's like chisel marks up there that looks like somebody's destroyed this shit, and the only thing left is the word purple.
What do
Um,
you when would the Phoenicians have been exploring this area? Do we know any range
yeah,
time?
like 2500 BC.
Okay. Okay, so they were first.
So
So
they're like around the time that the Egyptians were allegedly building the pyramids.
got it. Got
You
it.
know, yeah. Um, so one interesting thing, purple is royalty, right? So that tells to me that this mausoleum may have been a royal mausoleum that would have stored the generational remains of, hundreds of people, right?
Mm.
Of high status. So here's the intentional cover up of stone-hewn tombs in at least one location. We just went over that. So we do actually have an inquiry out to the person that ordered these things to be covered up, and I want to hear her side of the story, so hopefully she responds. Um, Misplacement of artifacts. So this artifact right here is called the Triskelion. This is an Egyptian symbol. It's also the Celtic knot. It's kind of where the Celtic knot comes from. But in terms of its association with water and fish, this is clearly like an echo of Atlantean symbolism here. This artifact was shown at one point in the Museum of Angra, and Antonietta saw it, and then she came back to try to see it again and to photograph it, and it was gone. And she was like, "Hey, where's this thing that was here a couple of days ago or whatever? I know I saw it." And they basically told her that she was crazy and that she was seeing things and that they did not have this thing and it didn't exist. So
Wow.
they're, you present something and somebody that knows the significance of it is like, that's really interesting. Where'd you find this? And then questions are asked, and then somebody at some point realizes that they shouldn't have this because it upsets the narrative, so they hide it.
Wow.
That's conspiracy right there. That's my conspiracy brain going on that I know everybody can appreciate. Next up, this is broadly speaking academic, military, and political avoidance, ignorance, and outright restriction of sites of study, of financial, not funding anything, just ignoring it. Uh, So intentional spreading of invasive destructive plant species in sensitive areas. So this area in Soretta, which I mentioned earlier, there are rumors that appear to be, and you can actually see it, there's maps from the 40s that show this forest much smaller than it is today. Um, but today the forest is huge and it's populated entirely by this plant species that there's eucalyptus, but there's also the metrozyle tree that grows into the rocks and just destroys things. So it seems like somebody has intentionally done this to destroy an ancient site. Social media censorship, so this might be get censored. Have fun with that. Um,
Hmm.
Various individuals who have been posting things about the Azores prehistory or pre-Portuguese Azores have been banned, shadow banned, and had posts outright removed. Um,
What's the explanation for that, or is there not one?
Not one,
Okay.
not one that I've ever heard. So Gaspar Frutuoso was the original chronographer of the historian of the Azores. He wrote 6 volumes of history and of the Azores sometime in the early 1600s, I believe. Um, his sixth volume, he admits that a large part of the previous 5 volumes were fabricated. So basically, he's admitting that all of a huge part of the documented history from 1427 all the way to 1600, let's say, is hearsay and may not be actually true. So we have this, I mean, this is a glaring gap in history that's like, holy shit, this guy that wrote all the history that everybody cites is saying that a huge part of it is false. What do you do with that? And that's just one of these things that's conveniently ignored by historians that still will cite this man's work, as I have in this presentation, but fail to address the point that he makes that says he admits he's like the information I got from letters from people from whatever, a lot of it was false.
Hmm. Does
So
he
that's a
does he
weird
give
thing.
any understanding as to why he fabricated this history?
Not really. It seems like a last ditch kind of deathbed confession,
Hmm. That's interesting.
I
Wow.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Rumors rumors of many more structures upon colonization and little will to obtain proofs of any kind. Yeah, this is, I mean, the slide title is accurate. This is all
right.
very, very suspicious. And what can you remind me the implications of the symbol in the top right being present are what? That
This
that there was
is
a Phoenician occupation of this island or Egyptian, not
yeah, Egyptian. Well, I mean, so this is the Triskelion.
yeah.
It's basically if you imagine a trident
Hmm.
spinning and coming towards you,
Oh,
this is the
that's
shape that
interesting.
it would make, right? So you have
That's
this
cool.
like Poseidon, Atlantis
Oh
trace
yeah.
back, so it there's a number of things you could suppose that it means.
So so
It's
that's not an actual
unity.
that's not an actual photo of the one that was seen in the museum. This is a different, like a reference of what she saw.
So if I recall correctly, this is an actual photo of
Oh wow.
of that artifact. And I know that kind of contradicts what I said a minute ago because she like went back to see it, but
Right.
I think she took the picture the first time she saw it
Got
and
it.
then came back to look at it again and it was gone.
Wow. Well, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Man, Nick, you are, as always, a wealth of knowledge. So to summarize, I mean, this island sounds like it's had just an incredibly rich and confusing history for sure for the last, 1,500 years, but then potentially thousands of years. and
Hmm.
potentially going past
Tens of
that.
thousands of years,
And
yeah.
now obviously for people listening trying to understand, like, well, what does this have? I mean, the idea is that this area that you are exploring would have been like a mountaintop, 10,000, 12,000 years ago, right?
Yep.
And so you're not really expecting to find evidence of Atlantis there. You're just exploring potential descendants of
Yep.
Atlantis, the Phoenicians, inhabiting that area, which would certainly is interesting. It points
Yeah,
to
yeah. I think if you want to find it, evidence of land of literally Atlantis, you got to go underwater, and
right.
more to come with that. I would anybody who wants some pretty, I think, concrete, not proof, but reasons to go look here is the work of Matthew Chen, Apocalypse on YouTube. He has a 13-part series on the Azores that is just fascinating, and he's got another series coming out here soon that makes the case even further for this place being significant. So,
Wow. That
yeah, that's a huge thing.
okay, that sounds awesome. Is there anything you want to plug before we wrap up? I mean, I know the trip is booked, but is there
Yeah,
anything?
trip is booked. We are
Remind us
we're
when it is.
still November 4th through the
Oh,
16th.
okay, got it.
Yeah. Um, Most people are going to show up a couple of days early and get their bearings about them before and hang out a little bit, but um we're taking wait list applications still, and we plan to do this many more times. So um yeah, we're trying to set dates for the next one, spring of next year, maybe summer of next year. Summer's a little bit harder because things are way more booked and it's the tourist season.
Mm.
Um, let's see what else.
Well, if you have a strong Wi-Fi signal, of course, you're always welcome to chat with us from the Azores. That'd be fun.
Yeah, yeah,
But
sure. Well, we're gonna have a lot of presentations out there. Matt is gonna be giving a presentation. Jeff Appling, actually, who we was talking about earlier, he'll be attending the tour. We'll have Randall will be there giving his presentations on all kinds of stuff, like I really I'm hoping to dive into some of Randall's Templar knowledge with the Azores because I know he's got it. I know
yeah,
the stuff he's public about with the Azores is not everything, so
yeah, yeah,
looking
yeah.
forward to that.
It doesn't seem like there's much he doesn't know about. It's pretty
Yeah, for
cool.
sure.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing. I'm excited to see you in a few days or a week, I guess. Thanks for swinging by to share this with us, and
Yeah,
stick around so I can say goodbye to you. But for now, I'll wrap it up. Nick, thank you, my friend.
thank you. It's been fun.